The fever had been building in Eliza Parker's body for 3 days, turning her skin hot to the touch and her vision hazy around the edges. But when she stumbled into the foreman's office that morning in May of 1882, Frank Garrison took one look at her flushed face and told her that if she dared take a sick day, she could consider herself unemployed. Eliza had gripped the doorframe to keep herself upright, her knuckles white against the weathered wood, and nodded because she needed this job more than she needed rest, more than she needed medicine, more than she needed anything except perhaps her next breath. The Diamond D Ranch outside Julesburg, Colorado had been her salvation 6 months ago when she arrived with nothing but a worn carpetbag and desperation in her eyes. And Frank Garrison knew it, wielded that knowledge like a weapon every chance he got. She made it through the morning by sheer force of will, mucking out stalls in the horse barn while her head pounded, and her muscles screamed protest with every movement. The other ranch hands gave her worried glances, but nobody said anything, because nobody wanted to cross Frank Garrison, who ruled the day-to-day operations of the Diamond D with an iron fist, while the owner, Owen Dempsey, spent most of his time managing the cattle operations in the far pastures. Eliza had seen Owen only a handful of times since she started working at the ranch, always at a distance, always surrounded by the experienced cowboys who rode with him on the long drives across the Colorado plains. He was tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar, and there was something about the way he sat his horse that suggested competence and quiet authority. But Eliza had never spoken more than a few words to him. By noon, she was leaning against the barn wall during her brief break, sliding down until she sat in the dirt with her head in her hands. The world tilted and spun around her, and she knew with absolute certainty that she could not make it through the afternoon. The sun beat down mercilessly, and even in the shade of the barn, the heat felt oppressive against her fevered skin. She heard boots approaching and tried to pull herself together, tried to stand, but her legs would not cooperate. "Miss Parker, you look like death warmed over." The voice was unfamiliar, deeper than Frank Garrison's nasal tone, and when Eliza forced her eyes to focus, she found herself looking up at Owen Dempsey himself. He crouched down in front of her, his brown eyes filled with concern, and reached out to touch the back of his hand to her forehead. "Jesus, you are burning up. What are you doing out here, working?" Eliza managed to say, her voice coming out as barely more than a whisper. "I have to work. You have to see a doctor is what you have to do." Owen stood and offered her his hand, but when Eliza tried to take it, tried to pull herself up, her vision went completely black around the edges, and she felt herself falling forward. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground, and then she was being lifted, carried, held against a chest that smelled of leather and sage and something clean and masculine. "Put me down," she protested weakly. "Frank will fire me." "Frank does not fire anyone on this ranch without my say-so," Owen said, his voice tight with something that sounded like anger, though Eliza could not imagine it was directed at her. "How long have you been sick?" 3 days. The admission came out before she could stop it, and Eliza felt tears of frustration burning in her eyes. She did not cry, had not cried since she left her father's farm in Kansas. But the combination of fever and exhaustion, and the unexpected kindness in Owen's voice, was breaking down walls she had carefully constructed. Owen's arms tightened around her. 3 days, and you have been working the whole time." He did not wait for an answer, just kept walking with long, purposeful strides. Eliza could hear raised voices ahead, one of them definitely Frank Garrison, and she tensed. "Please," she said. "Please, I cannot lose this job." "You are not going to lose anything except this fever." Owen's voice was firm, brooking no argument. They reached the ranch house, a sprawling structure that Eliza had never been inside, and Owen kicked the door open with his boot. Mrs. Chen. An older Chinese woman appeared from what must have been the kitchen, her eyes widening when she saw Eliza in Owen's arms. Mrs. Chen had worked as the ranch house cook and housekeeper for years, and she took one look at Eliza's flushed face before launching into rapid instructions. Guest room, upstairs, second door on the right. I will bring water and cloths. We need to bring the fever down. Mrs. Chen disappeared back into the kitchen while Owen carried Eliza up the stairs. The house was beautifully appointed, far nicer than anywhere Eliza had lived in her entire 22 years, and she felt acutely aware of how dirty she must be, covered in barn dust and horse hair and sweat. "I am getting your house filthy," she protested, as Owen shouldered open a door and carried her into a bright, airy bedroom with lace curtains and a large bed covered in a colorful quilt. "I do not give a damn about the house." Owen set her down gently on the bed, then immediately began pulling off her boots. "Mrs. Chen will be up in a moment to help you get more comfortable. I am going to send someone for Doc Morrison." "I cannot afford a doctor." Eliza's voice cracked on the words. She could barely afford to eat most weeks, sent most of her meager wages back to her mother and younger siblings in Kansas. Owen's hand stilled on her second boot, and when he looked up at her, his expression was unreadable. "You work for me. I will handle the doctor." He pulled off the boot and set it aside, then stood. "I will be back." He left before Eliza could protest further, and moments later Mrs. Chen bustled in with a basin of cool water, clean cloths, and a nightgown that looked like it had never been worn. "Let us get you out of these dirty clothes, yes. You will feel better once you are clean and cool." Eliza wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she needed to get back to work, but she did not have the strength. She let Mrs. Chen help her undress and wash. Let the older woman's capable hands sponge cool water over her fevered skin. The nightgown was soft white cotton with tiny flowers embroidered around the neckline, far finer than anything Eliza owned, and when Mrs. Chen helped her lie back against the pillows, she could not suppress a sigh of relief. "You rest now," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "Mr. Dempsey will take care of everything." But that was what worried Eliza. She had learned long ago not to trust that anyone would take care of anything, that the only person she could rely on was herself. Still, her body had other ideas, and despite her anxiety, she felt herself drifting toward sleep. She woke to voices in the hallway, one of them definitely Owen's, the other Frank Garrison's distinctive nasal whine. "She is a worker. Nothing special. You cannot disrupt the entire ranch operation because one girl is feeling poorly. One girl who has been working herself to exhaustion while running a dangerous fever, apparently because you threatened her job if she took a sick day." Owen's voice was cold in a way that made Eliza shiver despite her fever. "Is that true, Frank?" "She is exaggerating. I merely told her that we needed all hands on deck this week with the new horses coming in. She chose to interpret that however she wanted." "I see." There was a long pause. "You are fired." Eliza's eyes flew open. No, this could not be happening. Frank Garrison had been foreman of the Diamond D for 5 years. He might be harsh, might rule with intimidation and fear, but he knew the ranch operations inside and out. Owen could not fire him because of her. "You cannot be serious." Frank's voice rose an octave. "Over some girl who has been here less than a year, a girl who barely pulls her weight anyway." "Miss Parker pulls her weight just fine. I have seen the work logs. She completes every task assigned to her, often before the men twice her size finish theirs." Owen's voice remained level, controlled, but there was steel underneath. But that is not why you are fired. You are fired because you threatened an employee's livelihood to force them to work while seriously ill, putting not only her health at risk, but potentially the health of every other person on this ranch. You are fired because you have created an environment of fear rather than respect. You are fired because I have received multiple complaints about your treatment of the ranch hands over the past 6 months, and I have been looking for a reason to let you go. You just handed me one. You will regret this, Frank hissed. This ranch will fall apart without me. Then I will pick up the pieces and build it better. You have until sundown to clear out your belongings from the foreman's cabin. If you are still on Diamond D land after that, I will have you removed. Owen's footsteps moved away, and then the bedroom door opened quietly. Eliza tried to sit up, panic flooding through her. You should not have done that. The ranch needs a foreman. I can go back to work tomorrow. I can tell Frank I am fine. Lie back down before you fall down. Owen crossed the room in 3 long strides and gently but firmly pressed her back against the pillows. Frank Garrison needed to go regardless of what happened today. You gave me the final push I needed to do what I should have done months ago. But who will manage the ranch hands? Who will organize the work crews? Eliza's voice was rising with her distress, and she hated how weak she sounded, how out of control. Owen sat down on the edge of the bed, his weight making the mattress dip slightly. I will, until I find someone better. I have been too hands-off with the daily operations, trusted Frank too much, because he was here when my father died and I inherited the ranch. That was a mistake. He reached out and pushed a damp strand of hair back from her forehead, the gesture surprisingly gentle. Right now, the only thing you need to worry about is resting and getting well. Do you understand me? Eliza stared at him. This man she barely knew who was upending his ranch operations because she was sick. His brown eyes were warm but determined, and there was something in his expression that made her breath catch in her chest. Why are you doing this? Because it is the right thing to do. Owen stood, but his hand lingered on hers for a moment. Doc Morrison should be here within the hour. Mrs. Chen will sit with you until then. Rest well, Eliza. The sound of her given name on his lips sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fever. She watched him leave, heard his boots on the stairs, and then let her eyes close again as exhaustion dragged her back down into sleep. Doc Morrison was a gruff man in his 60s with gentle hands and sharp eyes. He examined Eliza thoroughly, listened to her chest, looked down her throat, and finally pronounced that she had a severe respiratory infection that could develop into pneumonia if not treated carefully. He left packets of powder to be mixed with water, instructions for keeping the fever down, and stern orders that Eliza was not to so much as think about working for at least a week, preferably 2. That girl has been pushing herself too hard, Doc Morrison said to Owen, his voice carrying clearly through the open bedroom door. She is severely underweight, shows signs of chronic exhaustion, and her hands are torn up from hard labor. What kind of operation are you running here, Owen? The kind that is about to change significantly. Owen's voice was grim. Will she be all right if she rests and is properly cared for? Yes. If she tries to go back to work too soon, she could end up seriously ill or worse. I am not joking about the pneumonia risk. Keep her in bed, keep her eating, keep her taking the medicine. I will check on her again in 3 days. Eliza heard the doctor leave, heard the murmur of Mrs. Chen's voice as she spoke with Owen, and then silence. She drifted in and out of sleep as the afternoon wore into evening, vaguely aware of Mrs. Chen bringing broth and medicine, of cool cloths being placed on her forehead, of the light outside the window turning golden and then purple, and then dark. Sometime deep in the night, She woke to find a lamp burning low on the bedside table and Owen sitting in a chair next to the bed, reading a leather-bound book. He must have sensed her movement because he looked up immediately, setting the book aside. "You should not be here," Eliza whispered, her voice raw. "It is not proper. Mrs. Chen needs her sleep, and I wanted to make sure you were all right." Owen poured water from a pitcher into a glass and helped her sit up enough to drink. "How do you feel?" "Like I was trampled by a horse." Eliza took small sips of the water, grateful for the coolness against her parched throat. "You should not have fired Frank because of me." "I told you, I fired Frank because he needed firing." Owen set the glass aside and studied her face in the lamplight. "How long have you been sending your wages home?" The question startled her so much that she answered honestly. "Since I started working here. My mother has my 3 younger siblings to feed and my father died 2 years ago. They need the money more than I do." "And what have you been living on?" "Whatever is left after I send money home." Eliza looked away, not wanting to see pity in his eyes. "It is enough." "It is clearly not enough if you have been working yourself to exhaustion." Owen's voice was gentle but firm. "Starting tomorrow, your wages are doubling." "Before you argue," he held up a hand as she opened her mouth to protest. "This is not charity. You do the work of 2 people most days, according to the other ranch hands. You should be paid accordingly." Tears burned in Eliza's eyes again, and she blinked them back furiously. "I do not understand why you are being so kind to me." Owen was quiet for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "The first time I saw you, you were fixing a broken fence post that 3 of my experienced hands had given up on. You had figured out a solution they had not even considered, and you were out there in the hot sun making it work even though your hands were bleeding. I asked Frank about you that night, and he said you were adequate but nothing special, that you did what you were told and did not cause trouble. That bothered me because what I had seen was someone with intelligence and determination and skill. So I started paying more attention, and I saw that Frank was treating you exactly the way he treated everyone else, with contempt and intimidation. I saw that you came in early and stayed late, that you took on extra work without being asked, that you helped the other hands even when you were clearly exhausted yourself. And I wondered what kind of circumstances had brought you to my ranch, working a job that most women would not touch, sending all your money away and barely surviving yourself. My father's farm was too small and too deep in debt," Eliza heard herself saying, the words spilling out as if Owen's quiet confession had opened a door inside her. "When he died, the bank was going to take everything. My mother tried to keep it going, but she could not manage it alone, and my siblings are too young. I thought if I could send money home, if I could help them hold on just a little longer, maybe my brothers would be old enough soon to really work the farm, make it profitable. I saw an advertisement for ranch work in Colorado, positions available for anyone willing to do hard labor. It did not say men only, so I applied. I have been around horses and cattle my whole life. I figured I could do the work, and I can." She looked at him defiantly, daring him to say otherwise. "I know you can." Owen reached out and took her hand, his fingers warm and calloused against hers. "But you should not have to destroy yourself doing it. A farm that deep in debt with a widow and 3 children trying to keep it going. Eliza, what is your brother's age?" "Martin is 15, Samuel is 12, and Jenny is 8. Eliza's voice dropped. "Martin tries so hard, but he is still learning. It will be at least a few more years before he can really manage things. A few more years of you working yourself to death to send money to a failing farm." Owen's thumb traced over the calluses on her palm. "Has it occurred to you that you might be trying to save something that cannot be saved?" The words hit like a physical blow, and Eliza pulled her hand away. "They are my family," I know, and I am not suggesting you abandon them." Owen's voice was calm, soothing. "But there might be better solutions than what you have been doing. When you are well, we will talk about it. For now, you need to sleep." But Eliza could not sleep, could not stop thinking about what Owen had said. The truth was, she had been so focused on survival, on getting through each day and sending every penny home, that she had not let herself think about the future, about whether what she was doing would actually help or just delay the inevitable. She had certainly not let herself think about what she wanted, what kind of life she might build for herself. She must have eventually drifted off because when she woke again, sunshine was streaming through the window, and Mrs. Chen was bustling around the room, opening curtains and bringing in a breakfast tray loaded with eggs, toast, bacon, and fresh fruit. The smell made Eliza's stomach growl, reminding her that she had barely eaten in days. "Good, you are awake," Mrs. Chen said with satisfaction. "You must eat everything on this tray. Doctor's orders and Mr. Dempsey's orders, and I agree with both of them." Eliza tried to sit up and was surprised to find that, while she still felt weak and her head ached, the terrible bone-deep exhaustion had eased slightly. She let Mrs. Chen pile pillows behind her and accepted the tray, determined to at least make an attempt at the food. To her surprise, once she started eating, she found she was ravenously hungry. She cleaned the plate while Mrs. Chen watched with approval, then took the medicine that was offered without complaint. "Mr. Dempsey said to tell you that he has found a temporary foreman, one of the experienced hands named Jack Sullivan. Jack has been with the ranch for 8 years and knows the operations well. Everything is running smoothly, and you are not to worry about work." Mrs. Chen collected the tray and smiled. "He also said to tell you that if you try to get out of that bed before Doc Morrison clears you, he will personally carry you back to it." Despite everything, Eliza felt a smile tugging at her lips. He would too, would he not? Oh yes, Mr. Dempsey is a man of his word. Mrs. Chen headed for the door, then paused. "He is a good man, that one. His father was hard, expected everything to run like clockwork, did not care much about the people who worked for him. But Owen, he is different. He cares. Maybe too much sometimes, it gets him hurt. But it is better to care too much than too little, I think." After Mrs. Chen left, Eliza lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. She had been at the Diamond D for 6 months and had barely spoken to Owen Dempsey beyond basic pleasantries. But now he had fired his foreman for her, was paying for her doctor, had doubled her wages, and was personally ensuring she recovered. It was overwhelming and confusing, and sparked something warm and uncertain in her chest that she was afraid to examine too closely. The next few days passed in a blur of rest, medicine, and food. Mrs. Chen kept Eliza well fed with hearty meals. Doc Morrison checked on her twice and pronounced her improving, and Owen stopped by each evening to sit with her for an hour or so. They talked about everything and nothing during those evening visits. Owen told her about inheriting the ranch 5 years ago when his father died suddenly, about his struggles to balance maintaining the ranch operations with changing the harsh culture his father had established. Eliza told him about growing up on a small farm, about her love of horses, about the books she had managed to read despite limited schooling. "My mother taught me to read when I was very young," Eliza said one evening as they sat together, the lamp casting warm light around the room. "We only had a handful of books, but I read them over and over. There was this one book of poetry that had belonged to my grandmother. I must have read it 100 times. What kind of poetry?" Owen was sitting in his usual chair, his long legs stretched out in front of him, looking more relaxed than Eliza suspected he allowed himself to be most of the time. "Romantic poetry, mostly. Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Lord Byron, John Keats. Beautiful words about love and nature and emotion. Eliza felt her cheeks warm. I know it is silly, reading about grand passions and dramatic declarations when my real life was mucking out stalls and trying to figure out how to make the harvest last through winter. It is not silly at all. Owen leaned forward, his expression intent. Everyone needs beauty in their lives, especially when circumstances are difficult. Poetry, music, art. They remind us that there is more to existence than just survival. Is that why you have all these books? Eliza gestured to the small bookshelf in the corner of the guest room, filled with volumes on everything from ranch management to classic literature. Partly. I like reading, always have. My mother was a school teacher before she married my father. She insisted I have a proper education even though we lived on a ranch. She died when I was 12, and after that, my father was determined to turn me into a cattleman and nothing else. But I kept reading, kept learning. Owen's voice held old sadness. My father thought it was a waste of time. Said books would not teach me how to break a horse or manage a herd. But they teach you how to manage people, how to think about problems from different angles, how to understand human nature. Eliza had seen enough in her short time knowing Owen to recognize that he was not the typical rough ranch owner. Your father was wrong. Maybe. Owen smiled at her, a real smile that transformed his entire face and made something flutter in Eliza's stomach. But I think you would have liked my mother. She was fierce and kind and refused to let circumstances define her. She sounds wonderful. Eliza found herself smiling back, caught in the warmth of Owen's gaze. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Owen stood reluctantly. I should let you rest. You are looking much better, but Doc Morrison said you need plenty of sleep. Owen, Eliza said as he reached the door. He turned back and she took a breath, gathering courage. Thank you for everything. I do not know how I will ever repay you. You do not need to repay me, Eliza. Just get well. He hesitated, then added softly, and maybe when you are recovered, you will let me take you for a ride around the ranch. There are some beautiful spots I would like to show you. After he left, Eliza touched her fingers to her cheeks, feeling how hot they had become, and it had nothing to do with fever this time. She was in dangerous territory, she knew that. Owen Dempsey was her employer, owned the ranch where she worked, was so far above her station that any romantic thoughts were completely inappropriate. But her heart did not seem to care about propriety or station, or the vast difference in their circumstances. By the end of the week, Eliza was feeling strong enough to sit up in a chair by the window, and Doc Morrison finally gave her permission to start moving around the house, though he still forbade any return to work. Mrs. Chen helped her dress in one of the simple day dresses that had mysteriously appeared in the wardrobe, clothes that fit Eliza perfectly and were far nicer than anything she had owned before. Mr. Dempsey had these brought from the dressmaker in town, Mrs. Chen said when Eliza asked. He said you needed something to wear besides that nightgown, and your work clothes were only fit for burning. He cannot keep buying me things, Eliza protested even as she ran her hands over the soft fabric of the pale blue dress. I am his employee, not his. Not his what, Mrs. Chen asked with a knowing look. Eliza could not finish the sentence, could not voice what she was afraid she might want to be to Owen. Instead, she let Mrs. Chen button up the dress and braid her hair, and then she made her way carefully downstairs, holding tight to the banister. The ranch house was beautiful in the daylight, with large windows that let in sunshine and a comfortable, lived-in feel despite its size. Eliza found Owen in his office, a book-lined room with a large desk covered in papers and ledgers. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway, and his face lit with a smile that made her heart skip. "Look at you, up and about. How do you feel?" He stood and crossed to her, his hands hovering near her elbows as if ready to catch her if she stumbled. "Much better. Still a bit weak, but so much improved from a week ago." Eliza gestured around the office. "I wanted to see more of the house, and Mrs. Chen said you were in here. Come sit." Owen guided her to a comfortable leather chair near the window. "I was just going over the books. The ranch is doing well, better than I expected for this time of year. The new horses we brought in last month are training beautifully. The ones Frank said we needed all hands for." Eliza could not keep the edge from her voice. "Yes. Though it turns out we managed just fine without driving sick employees to work." Owen settled into the chair across from her. "Jack Sullivan has been doing an excellent job as foreman. The men respect him, and he is firm but fair. I am thinking of offering him the position permanently." "That is good." Eliza looked down at her hands, folded in her lap. "When will I be able to return to work?" "Doc Morrison wants you to wait another week at least, maybe 2, and when you do come back, you will not be mucking stalls anymore." Owen's voice was firm. "I have been thinking about what you said, about growing up around horses. We need someone to help with training the new horses, someone who understands them and has a gentle hand. It would pay better than general ranch work, and it would not be as physically demanding." Eliza looked up sharply. "You want me to be a horse trainer, if you are interested. I have watched you with the horses, Eliza. They trust you in a way they do not trust most of the hands. You have a gift." Owen leaned forward. "And I have been thinking about what you told me about your family situation. There is a small cottage on the ranch property, about a mile from the main house. It has been empty for a few years, needs some fixing up, but it is sound. If you became the horse trainer, the cottage would be part of your compensation. And if you wanted to bring your family here, your brothers could work on the ranch, learn the cattle business. Your mother and sister would have a safe place to live. The farm in Kansas could be sold to pay off the debts." Eliza stared at him, unable to process what he was offering. "You would do that? Bring my entire family here, give them work and a place to live? I need good people, and if your brothers have half your determination, they will be assets to the ranch. Your mother could help Mrs. Chen if she wanted, or simply rest after years of struggling. Your sister could go to the school in Julesburg." Owen's eyes were warm and sincere. "I am not offering this out of pity, Eliza. I am offering it because it makes sense for the ranch and because I want you to be happy. I want you to stop carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Tears spilled down Eliza's cheeks before she could stop them, years of stress and fear and loneliness pouring out all at once. Owen made a soft sound of distress and moved from his chair to kneel in front of her, taking her hands in his. "I am sorry," he said urgently. "I did not mean to upset you. If this is not what you want, we can find another solution." "No, you do not understand." Eliza's voice came out choked. "This is everything I have been trying to achieve, everything I have been working toward. You are offering me hope, real hope, and I do not know what I did to deserve such kindness from you. You were brave enough to leave everything you knew to try to save your family. You were strong enough to endure Frank Garrison's cruelty without complaint. You were determined enough to keep going even when you were too sick to stand." Owen's thumbs traced over her knuckles. "You deserve every kindness, Eliza Parker, and if you will let me, I would like to spend time showing you exactly how remarkable I think you are." Eliza's breath caught as she understood what he was saying, what he was offering beyond jobs and cottages and practical solutions. "Owen, I am just a ranch hand with nothing to my name. You own this entire operation. People would talk, would say I was taking advantage. Let them talk." Owen's voice was fierce. "I am 30 years old, Eliza. I have spent the last 5 years building this ranch, proving myself to everyone around me. I have not made time for courting or romance or any of the things my friends have been pestering me about. And then you showed up, this fierce, determined woman who could outsmart my ranch hands and outwork men twice her size, and I have not been able to stop thinking about you. When I saw you sick, saw how close you had come to collapsing because of my negligence in not dealing with Frank sooner, it terrified me. The thought of losing you before I even had a chance to really know you." He trailed off, then met her eyes directly. "I am not good at pretty words or romantic gestures, but I know what I want, and I want the chance to court you properly if you will have me." Eliza's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This could not be happening, could not be real. Men like Owen Dempsey did not fall for women like her, and yet here he was, on his knees in front of her, looking at her like she was something precious and rare. "I want that too," she whispered. "I have wanted it since you carried me into this house and told me to rest well. But Owen, what if this goes wrong? What if it does not work out? I cannot lose this job, lose the opportunity for my family." "It will not affect your job or the cottage or anything else I have offered," Owen said immediately. "That is a promise, Eliza. Whatever happens between us personally, your position here is secure. But I do not think it is going to go wrong. I think if you give us a chance, we might be something quite special together." He was still holding her hands, still looking at her with such warmth and certainty that Eliza felt something loosen in her chest, some tight knot of fear and protection that she had been carrying for so long. She squeezed his fingers gently. "Then yes. I would like very much for you to court me, Owen Dempsey." His answering smile was brilliant, and he lifted one of her hands to press a kiss to her knuckles, his lips warm against her skin. "You have made me very happy, Eliza Parker." Over the next few weeks, as Eliza regained her strength, Owen made good on his promise to court her properly. He took her for walks around the ranch property, showing her the places he loved best. There was a meadow filled with wildflowers where he sometimes went to think, a creek where the water ran clear and cold even in summer, a rise that overlooked the entire valley and provided a spectacular view of the sunset. They rode together on gentle horses, Owen patiently waiting when Eliza needed to rest, always attentive to her comfort. He brought her books from his personal library, and they discussed them over meals. Mrs. Chen served dinner for two in the ranch house dining room most evenings, and Eliza gradually stopped feeling like an imposter sitting at the fine table. Owen asked her opinions on ranch matters, listened carefully to her thoughts about horse training, included her in conversations with Jack Sullivan about the daily operations. The other ranch hands adjusted quickly to the new dynamic. With Frank Garrison gone and Jack Sullivan running things fairly, the entire atmosphere at the Diamond D improved. Men whistled while they worked, helped each other without being ordered, and treated Eliza with respect rather than suspicion. Several of them approached her to apologize for not standing up to Frank when he mistreated her, and Eliza accepted their apologies gracefully. True to his word, Owen wrote to Eliza's mother, explaining the situation and extending the offer to bring the family to Colorado. The letter that came back was tear-stained and grateful, and Eliza's mother wrote that they would sell the farm and make the journey west as soon as arrangements could be made. It would take a few months to handle everything, but by autumn, Eliza's family would be reunited at the Diamond D Ranch. During this time, Eliza fell more deeply in love with Owen than she had thought possible. He was kind but not weak, generous but not foolish, hardworking but not driven by greed. He treated everyone on the ranch with respect, from Mrs. Chen to the lowest stable hand. He was patient with the horses, gentle with the cattle, and when he looked at Eliza, his eyes held a warmth that made her feel treasured. Their first kiss happened on a Sunday afternoon in late June. They had ridden out to the meadow, and Eliza was gathering wildflowers while Owen watched from where he sat in the grass, his back against a tree. When she came back to him with an armful of blooms, laughing as she tried to keep them all from falling, he stood and took the flowers from her, setting them carefully aside. Then he cupped her face in his hands and looked at her with such intensity that her breath caught. "I am going to kiss you now," he said softly, "if that is all right with you." Instead of answering, Eliza rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, and then deeper as Owen's arms came around her waist and pulled her close. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eliza rested her forehead against his chest and felt his heart pounding beneath her cheek. "I love you," she said, the words spilling out before she could second-guess them. "I know it is too soon, and I should not say it, but I do. I love you, Owen. It is not too soon, and you absolutely should say it, because I love you too." Owen's voice was rough with emotion. "I have loved you since you told me off for firing Frank, since you worried more about the ranch than your own health. I love your strength and your courage and your fierce determination. I love your kindness and your intelligence and the way you look at the world. I love everything about you, Eliza Parker, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much." They sank down into the grass together, wrapped in each other's arms, kissing and murmuring words of love until the sun began its descent toward the horizon. Owen had brought a picnic basket, and they ate cheese and bread and fresh strawberries as the sky turned shades of gold and pink and purple. It was the happiest Eliza could remember being in her entire life, and when Owen helped her back onto her horse for the ride home, his hand lingering on her waist, she felt like she was floating. The summer passed in a golden haze of work and romance. Eliza started training horses under Owen's guidance, discovering that she had an instinct for understanding what each animal needed. Some required firm handling, others gentleness, and Eliza learned to read their personalities and adjust her approach accordingly. The work was challenging but rewarding, and by August, she had successfully trained 3 of the new horses to saddle, earning praise from Owen and respect from the ranch hands. The cottage Owen had mentioned was cleaned and repaired, transformed from a dusty, abandoned structure into a charming home with fresh paint, new curtains, and furniture that Owen insisted on providing. Eliza helped with the decorating, choosing cheerful colors and practical layouts while imagining her mother and siblings living there. Owen accompanied her on every trip to the cottage, carrying supplies and offering opinions, and Eliza could see him envisioning a future where her family was integrated into ranch life. In September, word came that Eliza's family would arrive in 2 weeks. The farm had been sold, the debts paid, and her mother had purchased train tickets to Denver, from where Owen would send a wagon to collect them. Eliza was beside herself with excitement and nervousness, desperate to see her family but worried about how they would adapt to their new life. "What if my brothers do not like ranch work?" she fretted to Owen as they sat on the porch of the main house one evening. "What if my mother is overwhelmed? What if Jenny is frightened by how different everything is?" "Then we will help them adjust," Owen said calmly, his arm around her shoulders. "Change is always hard, but they will have you, and they will have a stable home with opportunities they did not have in Kansas. Give them time, Eliza. They will be fine." When the day finally came, Eliza rode in the wagon with Owen to meet the train. She spotted her family on the platform before they saw her, and her heart clenched at how worn her mother looked, how much her brothers had grown, how small Jenny seemed among the crowd. Then Jenny turned and saw her, and the little girl's face lit up with joy. Eliza. The next few minutes were a chaos of hugs and tears and exclamations. Eliza's mother, Catherine Parker, held her daughter tight and wept, telling her how much she had been missed. Martin and Samuel, taller and gawkier than Eliza remembered, tried to act grown-up but could not hide their excitement. Jenny clung to Eliza's hand and refused to let go, chattering about everything they had seen on the train journey. Through it all, Owen stood back patiently, helping to load their meager belongings into the wagon. When the initial reunion had calmed slightly, Eliza drew him forward. "Mother boys, Jenny, this is Owen Dempsey. He owns the Diamond D Ranch, and he is the one who has made all of this possible." Eliza's voice was warm with affection and gratitude. "Owen, this is my family." Catherine Parker looked at Owen with sharp, assessing eyes, and Eliza held her breath, hoping her mother would see what she saw. After a moment, Catherine smiled and offered her hand. "Mr. Dempsey, I cannot thank you enough for what you have done for us. Your letters described a generous offer, but seeing my daughter looking so healthy and happy tells me there is more to the story than business arrangements." Owen shook Catherine's hand respectfully. "Your daughter is an exceptional woman, Mrs. Parker. Any kindness I have shown has been repaid tenfold by having her at the Diamond D. And please, call me Owen." The ride back to the ranch was filled with questions from Eliza's siblings and quiet observation from her mother. When they arrived and saw the cottage, freshly painted and welcoming, Catherine's eyes filled with tears again. "This is ours. We really get to live here. It is all yours," Owen confirmed. "Martin and Samuel, I will introduce you to Jack Sullivan tomorrow. He is the foreman, and he will get you started learning the ranch operations. Jenny, there is a school in Julesburg that starts in 2 weeks. One of the ranch hands, Tommy, has a daughter about your age who attends there. I am sure she would be happy to show you around. And Mrs. Parker, you are welcome to help Mrs. Chen at the main house if you would like, but there is no obligation. You have worked hard enough. This is a place to rest." As the family explored their new home, exclaiming over the furniture and space, Eliza stood with Owen on the cottage porch and leaned into his side. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have given them hope. You have given me everything." "You have given me just as much," Owen murmured back, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "A reason to build something better, someone to share it with. We are partners in this, Eliza. Never forget that." The next few weeks were an adjustment for everyone. Martin and Samuel proved to be quick learners, eagerly soaking up everything Jack Sullivan and the other hands taught them about cattle, horses, and ranch management. Martin, at 15, was serious and responsible, while 12-year-old Samuel was more adventurous but equally hardworking. Within a month, both boys were pulling their weight and earning respect from the other workers. Jenny thrived at school, making friends quickly and coming home each day with stories about her lessons and classmates. Catherine Parker initially tried to help Mrs. Chen, but was gently persuaded to take time for herself first. The years of stress and hardship had taken their toll, and Owen insisted she focus on recovering her health before taking on any responsibilities. As the autumn deepened and the cottonwood trees along the creek turned gold, Owen began planning how to propose to Eliza. He wanted it to be special, wanted to give her a moment she would remember forever. He consulted with Mrs. Chen, who helped him order a ring from a jeweler in Denver, and he confided in Jack Sullivan, who promised to keep the ranch running smoothly for a few days so Owen could devote his attention to romance. Owen chose the meadow where they had first kissed, arranging for a picnic at sunset on a day when the weather was perfect, and the wildflowers were still blooming despite the cooling temperatures. He told Eliza he wanted to show her something special, and she came willingly, riding beside him with curiosity in her eyes. When they reached the meadow, and Eliza saw the blanket spread on the grass, the basket of food, the bouquet of wildflowers waiting, her hand flew to her mouth. "Owen, what is all this?" "This is me trying to be romantic," he said with a crooked smile as he dismounted and helped her down from her horse. "I told you I was not good at pretty words or gestures, but I wanted to try." They sat together on the blanket, and Owen served her the meal Mrs. Chen had prepared with extra care: roasted chicken, fresh bread, potato salad, apple pie. They talked and laughed as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and purple. When the meal was finished and the light was fading to twilight, Owen took Eliza's hands in his and looked into her eyes. "Eliza Parker, these past few months with you have been the happiest of my life. You have changed everything about how I see the world, how I run the ranch, how I think about the future. You are strong and brave and kind and brilliant, and I want to spend every day for the rest of my life making you as happy as you make me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the fading light. "Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner and the woman I get to love for the rest of our days?" Eliza was crying, tears streaming down her face as she nodded frantically. "Yes, yes, of course, yes. I love you so much, Owen. I want nothing more than to spend my life with you." Owen slipped the ring onto her finger, and then they were kissing, holding each other tight as the stars began to appear overhead. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, Owen pressed his forehead to hers. "I am going to make you so happy," he promised. "You already have," Eliza whispered back. They were married in October in a simple ceremony at the church in Julesburg. Eliza wore a dress that Mrs. Chen and her mother had spent weeks sewing, white cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Owen wore his best suit and could not stop smiling as Eliza walked down the aisle toward him on her brother Martin's arm. Jack Sullivan stood up as Owen's best man, and Jenny served as Eliza's attendant, taking her role very seriously. The entire ranch attended the ceremony, and the celebration afterward, which was held at the Diamond D, with tables set up in the yard and music provided by several ranch hands who played fiddle and guitar. There was dancing and laughter and so much joy that Eliza thought her heart might burst from it. As the sun set and the celebration continued, Owen pulled Eliza away from the crowd, leading her to the porch of the main house where they could watch the festivities from a distance. "Happy?" he asked, his arm around her waist. "Happier than I knew was possible," Eliza said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "A year ago I was alone and desperate, working myself to death and seeing no way out. Now I have you, and my family is safe and thriving, and I have work I love. It feels like a dream." "It is not a dream," Owen assured her. "It is real, and it is ours, and it is just the beginning." They moved into the main house together, and Eliza took on the role of Owen's wife with the same determination she brought to everything else. She continued training horses, developing a reputation in the region for her skill and patience. Ranchers from neighboring properties began bringing their difficult horses to the Diamond D, and the horse training operation became a significant source of income for the ranch. Owen consulted Eliza on all major ranch decisions, valuing her insight and intelligence. Together, they expanded the cattle operation, upgraded the facilities, and hired additional hands to manage the growing workload. Martin Parker became one of the most skilled young cowboys in the region, while Samuel showed an aptitude for ranch management that led Owen to begin training him as an assistant to Jack Sullivan. Catherine Parker regained her health and vitality, helping Mrs. Chen with the household and becoming a beloved figure to all the ranch hands, who appreciated her kindness and excellent cooking. Jenny excelled at school and talked about becoming a teacher someday, an ambition that both Eliza and Owen encouraged. The first winter of their marriage was cold but cozy, with Eliza and Owen spending long evenings by the fire in the main house, reading together or simply talking about their days. They discussed everything from ranch business to philosophy to their dreams for the future. Owen wanted to make the Diamond D the finest ranch in Colorado, and Eliza wanted to establish a real horse training program that could teach others her methods. In February, Eliza began feeling unwell in the mornings, and Mrs. Chen took one look at her pale face and knowing smile. "You are with child," the older woman said with satisfaction. "I can always tell." Eliza's hand flew to her stomach, wonder flooding through her. "Are you certain?" "Certain enough. You should see Doc Morrison to confirm, but I am never wrong about these things." Mrs. Chen patted her arm. "Mr. Dempsey is going to be so happy." Eliza waited until that evening when she and Owen were alone in their bedroom to tell him. She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach, looking up at him with eyes full of joy and a little fear. "Owen, I think I am pregnant. Mrs. Chen is convinced, and I have all the signs." For a moment, Owen just stared at her, and then his face transformed with such pure happiness that Eliza felt tears spring to her eyes. He dropped to his knees in front of her, his arms around her waist and his cheek pressed to her stomach. "A baby," he whispered. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Eliza asked, even though the answer was obvious. Happy does not begin to cover it. Owen looked up at her, his eyes bright with tears. "You have given me everything, Eliza. Love, partnership, purpose, and now a child. I am the luckiest man alive." Doc Morrison confirmed the pregnancy a week later and estimated that the baby would arrive in late September or early October. Eliza's mother was thrilled at the news of becoming a grandmother, and Jenny was excited about being an aunt. Martin and Samuel were appropriately awkward about the whole thing, the way teenage boys tended to be, but clearly pleased for their sister. Owen became even more protective and attentive as Eliza's pregnancy progressed. He insisted she cut back on the physical aspects of horse training, though Eliza continued to oversee the program and work with the gentler horses. He fretted over her health, made sure she ate properly and rested often, and read everything he could find about pregnancy and childbirth. "You are being ridiculous," Eliza told him one afternoon when he tried to prevent her from walking to the barn. "I am pregnant, not made of glass. Women have been doing this since the beginning of time. But you are my woman having my baby, and I am allowed to worry," Owen said, though he stopped blocking her path. "Worry quietly then," Eliza said with a smile, standing on her toes to kiss his cheek before continuing toward the barn. The summer was hot, but not unbearable, and Eliza spent much of it in the shade, working on plans for expanding the horse training program and writing detailed notes about her methods. Owen had suggested she consider writing a book about horse training from a woman's perspective, and Eliza was intrigued by the idea. She started drafting chapters between her other responsibilities, finding that she enjoyed the process of putting her thoughts into words. As September arrived and Eliza grew larger and more uncomfortable, Owen barely let her out of his sight. The baby's room had been prepared with a cradle that Owen had built himself, curtains that Catherine and Mrs. Chen had sewn together, and blankets that Jenny had helped choose from the general store in town. On a warm evening in late September, Eliza's labor began. Owen sent someone racing for Doc Morrison and then proceeded to pace the house like a caged animal while Catherine and Mrs. Chen attended to Eliza upstairs. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next morning, and by the time the baby's first cries finally rang out, Owen was nearly sick with worry. Mrs. Chen appeared at the top of the stairs, her face tired but smiling. "You have a son, Mr. Dempsey. A healthy boy with good lungs, and your wife is exhausted but well." Owen took the stairs 3 at a time and rushed into the bedroom to find Eliza propped against pillows, her hair damp with sweat, and her face pale but radiant as she held a tiny bundle wrapped in a white blanket. She looked up at him with such love that Owen felt his throat close with emotion. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Owen approached the bed carefully, as if sudden movements might shatter the moment, and looked down at the small red face peeking out from the blanket. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was making tiny fussing sounds, his little fists waving in the air. "He is perfect," Owen whispered. "You are both perfect. Do you want to hold him?" Eliza offered, and Owen nodded, unable to speak. She carefully transferred the baby into his arms, and Owen stared down at his son with wonder. "We need to name him," Eliza said, watching her husband cradle their child with surprising confidence. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy, but had not settled on anything definite. Now, looking at this new life they had created, Owen knew exactly what he wanted to call their son. "Oliver," he said. "Oliver Thomas Dempsey, after your father and mine." "Oliver," Eliza repeated, testing the name. "I love it. Hello, Oliver. Welcome to the world, little one." The baby's early months were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Eliza and Owen took turns walking the floor with Oliver during his fussy nights, and Mrs. Chen and Catherine both helped with feeding and changing. The ranch hands were surprisingly charmed by the baby, and it was not uncommon to find one of the tough cowboys making silly faces to get Oliver to smile. As Oliver grew, Eliza returned gradually to her horse training work, bringing the baby with her in a sling that Owen had fashioned. Oliver seemed to love the horses, reaching out his tiny hands toward their soft noses and gurgling with delight when they snuffled at him gently. The Diamond D continued to prosper. Under Owen and Eliza's joint management, the ranch became known throughout Colorado for its quality cattle, excellent horses, and fair treatment of workers. They hired more hands as the operation expanded, and Jack Sullivan trained a whole new generation of cowboys in the respectful, competent style that Owen insisted upon. Martin Parker, now 18, was given his own small crew to manage, proving himself capable and level-headed. Samuel, at 15, showed a gift for understanding the business side of ranching and spent increasing amounts of time working with Owen on accounts and planning. Jenny, 12 now, was excelling at school and had already announced her intention to attend a teacher's college when she was old enough. When Oliver was 2 years old, Eliza became pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, and in the spring of 1886, she gave birth to a daughter they named Emma Rose. Where Oliver had been an easy baby who rarely fussed, Emma was demanding and opinionated from the start, making her wants known with a powerful voice that could wake the entire house. "She is going to be a force of nature," Owen said with a mixture of pride and resignation as he walked with screaming Emma at 3 in the morning. "She takes after her mother then," Eliza said from the bed, too tired to do more than smile. With 2 children under 5, life became hectic, but Eliza and Owen navigated it together with patience and humor. They made sure to carve out time for just the 2 of them, riding out to their meadow when they could get away or simply sitting together on the porch after the children were asleep. talking about their days and their dreams. You ever regret it? Eliza asked one evening as they watched the sunset. Taking in a sick ranch hand and turning your whole life upside down. Owen pulled her closer, his arm around her shoulders. Not for a single second. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Eliza Dempsey. You and our children and the life we have built together. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Even the part where you fired Frank Garrison and had to manage the ranch hands yourself for a month, Eliza teased. Especially that part, because it meant I had time to really get to know you, to see what an extraordinary woman you are. Owen pressed a kiss to her temple. I love you more every day. I did not know that was possible, but it is. I love you too, Eliza said, settling more comfortably against his side. Thank you for telling me to rest well all those years ago. Thank you for seeing me when I was at my lowest and deciding I was worth saving. You saved yourself, Eliza. I just gave you a safe place to do it. Owen's voice was warm with affection. But I will always be grateful that you chose to stay, chose to build a life with me. You could have left once you were well, could have gone anywhere. Instead, you stayed and made the Diamond D into a home. They sat together as the stars came out, comfortable in the silence and in each other's presence. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully. In the cottage nearby, Eliza's family lived in security and happiness. Across the ranch, men worked with dignity and fair pay. The Diamond D was everything Owen had dreamed of building and more. And at the heart of it all was the woman he loved, the woman who had come to him sick and desperate, and had stayed to become his partner in every sense of the word. The years continued to pass in a rhythm of seasons and celebrations. Oliver grew into a thoughtful boy who loved books as much as horses, inheriting his father's intelligence and his mother's gift with animals. Emma was wild and fearless, always getting into mischief and charming her way out of trouble with a smile that could melt even the sternest heart. When Eliza was 30, she published her book on horse training, a comprehensive guide that became surprisingly popular among ranchers and horsemen throughout the West. She received letters from as far away as California and Texas, people wanting advice or sharing their own success stories using her methods. Owen was immensely proud, showing off her book to anyone who would listen. Martin Parker married at 23, a rancher's daughter from a neighboring property, and continued to work at the Diamond D while starting his own small herd on land that Owen helped him purchase. Samuel took over as assistant foreman when Jack Sullivan retired at 65, proving himself more than capable despite his youth. Jenny went away to teacher's college at 18 and returned at 20 to teach at the Julesburg School, much to the delight of the whole family. Catherine Parker lived to see her grandchildren grow, spending her final years in comfort and surrounded by love. When she passed peacefully in her sleep at the age of 68, the whole ranch mourned her loss. She was buried in the small cemetery outside Julesburg, and Eliza visited her grave often, bringing flowers and telling her mother about Oliver and Emma, about the ranch, about the happiness that Catherine's sacrifice and courage had helped make possible. Through it all, Eliza and Owen's love only deepened. They still rode out to their meadow on special occasions, still read together by the fire on winter evenings, still talked about everything and nothing. They had their disagreements, of course, but they had learned to communicate with honesty and respect, to listen to each other's perspectives, to compromise when needed. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen took Eliza back to the meadow where he had proposed. It looked much the same as it had that golden autumn evening a decade before, though they were older now, marked by time and experience, and the joy and sorrow that came with living a full life. 10 years, Owen said as they sat together on a blanket, watching the sunset. A decade of marriage, and I love you more now than I did standing at that altar. We have built something amazing together, Eliza said, leaning against his shoulder. A family, a home, a legacy. Our children are healthy and happy. My siblings are thriving. The ranch is more successful than ever. We have been so blessed, Owen. We have worked hard for our blessings, Owen corrected gently. Never forget that, Eliza. What we have is the result of determination and courage and love. Your determination to save your family, your courage to take a chance on an unknown future, and the love we found together against all odds. Do you remember that first day? Eliza asked. When you found me collapsed against the barn wall and carried me into the house. I remember thinking you were going to die if someone did not help you, and being absolutely furious that Frank had let it get that far. Owen's voice was still tight with remembered anger. And then, I remember how you tried to protest, tried to go back to work even when you could barely stand. You were so fierce, so determined not to show weakness. I was terrified, Eliza admitted. Terrified of losing the job, of failing my family, of having come all that way for nothing. And then you fired Frank and told me to rest well, and something inside me just broke. I could not believe someone was being kind to me, was putting my welfare above convenience. It was the beginning of everything, Owen said softly. That moment when I decided I was not going to let you kill yourself working. I did not know then that I was falling in love with you, but looking back, I think some part of me did know. Some part of me recognized that you were going to change my life. They made love that night under the stars, gentle and familiar, and full of the tenderness that came from truly knowing another person. Afterward, they lay wrapped in each other's arms, talking about their children and their plans for the ranch and all the small details that made up their shared life. As the years progressed into their 40s, Eliza and Owen began to think about the ranch's future. Oliver, now a young man of 20, showed interest in taking over the cattle operations, while Emma, at 18, had developed her mother's gift with horses and was talking about expanding the training program even further. We have done well, Owen said one evening as he and Eliza reviewed the ranch accounts. Better than I ever imagined. The Diamond D is successful and respected, our workers are well treated and loyal, and our children are prepared to carry it forward. All because you had the courage to fire a foreman who needed firing, Eliza said with a smile. And because you cared more about one sick ranch hand than about convenience or convention. I cared about you, Owen corrected. I cared about the person I saw beneath the exhaustion and illness. I cared about giving you a chance to show what you could do, who you could become. He reached across the desk and took her hand. And you exceeded every expectation, Eliza. You transformed this ranch, transformed me, transformed everything you touched. We transformed it together, Eliza said firmly. This is our achievement, Owen. Yours and mine, built on partnership and love and mutual respect. Never forget that. On their 20th anniversary, the family threw a huge celebration at the Diamond D. The entire ranch attended, along with friends and business associates from throughout the region. Oliver gave a toast to his parents, speaking about the example they had set for what marriage and partnership should be. Emma sang a song she had written for the occasion, her clear voice bringing tears to many eyes. Martin and Samuel and Jenny all spoke about the opportunities they had been given, the lives they had built because of Owen and Eliza's generosity. When it was Eliza's turn to speak, she stood next to Owen and looked out at the assembled crowd, all these people whose lives had been touched by the Diamond D, by the philosophy of fairness and respect that she and Owen had worked so hard to instill. 20 years ago, I was desperate and alone, working myself to death to try to save my family. I came to this ranch expecting nothing more than hard work and a wage. Instead, I found a man who saw me as a person rather than just a worker, who valued my health above productivity, who believed I had something to offer beyond physical labor. She turned to look at Owen, her eyes bright with tears and love. You gave me rest when I needed it most. You gave me hope when I had none left. You gave me love when I thought I was unworthy of it. Everything good in my life comes from that first moment when you told me to rest well, when you put my needs above convenience. I love you, Owen Dempsey, and I thank God every day that I stumbled into your barn that morning. There was not a dry eye in the crowd as Owen pulled Eliza into his arms and kissed her, and the celebration continued long into the night with music and dancing and joy. As they grew older, Eliza and Owen gradually stepped back from day-to-day ranch management, handing more responsibility to Oliver and Emma and the capable team they had built. They took the time to travel, visiting places they had only read about, seeing the country beyond Colorado's borders. They remained deeply in love, still holding hands when they walked, still stealing kisses when they thought no one was looking, still finishing each other's sentences after decades together. When Owen was 62, he had a health scare that reminded them both of their mortality. He recovered fully, but the experience made them even more grateful for every day they had together. They spent more time with their grandchildren, Oliver and Emma both having married and started families of their own. They watched the ranch continue to thrive under the next generation's care, secure in the knowledge that the legacy they had built would endure. On a warm autumn evening, much like the one when Owen had proposed all those years ago, Eliza and Owen rode out to their meadow one last time. They were in their late 60s now, moving more slowly but still capable, still strong in the ways that mattered. They sat together on a blanket and watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. You remember what you asked me that first time we came here? Eliza said, her hand in Owen's. I asked if you were happy, Owen replied, his thumb tracing over her knuckles in the familiar gesture he had done thousands of times over the decades. And I told you I was happier than I knew was possible. Eliza looked at him, this man who had saved her life in every way that mattered, who had loved her through everything, who had been her partner and her love and her best friend. That is still true, Owen. After all these years, after everything we have been through, you still make me happier than I knew was possible. You are my everything, Eliza Dempsey, Owen said, his voice rough with emotion. You have been since the moment I saw you fighting so hard to keep going when you should have collapsed. I knew then that you were extraordinary, and I have spent every day since being grateful that you chose to build a life with me. They sat together as the stars emerged, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built something beautiful from desperate circumstances and determination and love. The diamond D sprawled around them, a testament to what partnership and respect and hard work could achieve. Their children and grandchildren were thriving, carrying forward the values that Eliza and Owen had worked so hard to instill. In the distance, they could see lights from the ranch house, warm and welcoming. They could hear the faint sound of music, their family gathered for an evening meal. This was the life they had built together, born from a moment of kindness when a cowboy had told a sick ranch hand to rest well, when he had valued her humanity above productivity. As they rode back to the ranch hand in hand, Eliza thought about how one moment, one choice to show compassion rather than cruelty, had changed the trajectory of so many lives. Owen's decision to fire Frank Garrison and care for her had rippled outward, transforming the ranch, her family, countless employees, and ultimately creating a legacy that would endure for generations. They lived many more good years together, always partners, always in love, always grateful for the twists of fate that had brought them together. When they finally passed, within months of each other as couples who have been together for decades often do, they left behind a thriving ranch, a loving family, and a story that became legendary in Julesburg. The tale of the foreman who threatened to fire a sick woman and the cowboy who fired the foreman instead and told her to rest well, beginning a love story for the ages.